Hi everyone. So you should have your notes in front of you. And just a reminder that the expectation is not that you write down every single thing that I say. You should just be listening carefully and writing down what you think are the most important ideas about each topic that I discuss. So today we're going to look at pre-Columbian civilizations, and I'm going to give you a brief introduction to the age of exploration. So our objectives for today is that by the end of this video, you're going to understand the varied cultures of the original inhabitants of North America. You're going to explain the economic and religious reasons for the exploration and colonization of North America by Europeans. And you're going to analyze the effects of the Columbian exchange, both positive and negative effects, on the Native American population. So if we're talking about our earliest Americans, many historians believe that Native Americans were living in America, in the New World, between 15,000 and 40,000 years ago. Okay? And historians think that these early Americans traveled from what is current-day Siberia over a land bridge and then migrated south, splitting at the Rocky Mountains and going southward. Some historians think that these early settlers also traveled by boat along the Pacific coast here. So when we're talking about the Native Americans, it's very important that we understand that they were a group of very, very different people that had different cultures, different languages, different economies, different types of beliefs and foods, and different housing. We often talk about Native Americans as this monolithic group, but they were extremely different. By the time Christopher Columbus arrives in the New World in 1492, there were 500 different peoples or tribes living in the New World. For example, in the New World alone, there were up to 130 million people living here. And in America, specifically in what is current day America, there were up to 13 million people living here, right? So this region of the world was already vastly populated and populated with a lot of different cultures. So this map shows you just a brief breakdown of various Native American cultures, and specifically their key way of life, right? Whether they were an agricultural community or a hunting and gathering community, right? And you can see that the green represents the agricultural Native American societies that were steeped in agriculture. Those societies developed very sophisticated irrigation systems. And then we see more on the West Coast hunting and gathering and fishing societies that really were able to sustain vast amounts of people. So it's probably not news to you that Native Americans and Europeans had very different perspectives and very different ways of life. Okay. So what I'd like for you to do here, I'd like for you to look at this chart. And then after you've looked at this chart, I'd like for you to answer this question that you see in your notes, which is based on the information provided, how might European explorers and American Indians perceive one another? So you can go ahead and pause me now, take a look at that chart and answer that question. So you might have guessed that Europeans perceived Native Americans in what was mostly a very negative and demeaning way. The earliest European settlers described Native Americans as being both childlike and simple, while at the same time being godless and savage and dangerous. Okay? And this really stems from the fact that Europeans just simply did not understand the Native American cultures that they were seeing. The New World was so much more culturally diverse than anything from what the Europeans had ever seen that they didn't really have a correct lens through which to process all of these new people and their new customs and languages and ways of life. And so the instinct for Europeans was to assume the worst and paint Native Americans in a very negative light simply because they really just didn't understand them. So we're going to segue a little bit to the age of exploration, and we're going to talk about why. So in the 1400s, Europeans start exploring the world, and there are lots of different reasons for that. But the main motivations for exploration and for later on for imperialism, which you probably talked about in world history, and you might have talked about these three motivations specifically as well, the three G's: God, gold, and glory. Okay. So Christopher Columbus specifically, who we'll talk about here in a moment, wrote about how one of his key motivations was to spread Christianity and was to convert the quote unquote natives or savage, godless Native Americans to Christianity. He also wanted to bring back gold, right? He wanted to strip the New World of its natural resources and bring back these riches to Spain, his mother country. And also a primary motivation of exploration was glory, right? An intense feeling of nationalism or pride in one's country and wanting to spread one's culture and bring back, again, glory to the mother country and gain more power and prestige in the world. So if we're just hone in on one of those G's, which is the gold aspect. So in the 1400s, Europe was very much interested in Asia as a trading partner for a lot of unique natural resources that Asia would provide, like spices, silks, jewels, perfumes, etc. And Europeans hoped to find a sailing route to Asia that would bypass Italy and the Middle East. And so Christopher Columbus is convinced that he can reach Asia by sailing west. And so Columbus in 1492, and you all have probably heard this story a lot in your schooling, but Columbus in 1492 sets sail with 3 ships and lands on what is thought to be present-day San Salvador Island, which is in the Bahamas. All in all, he completes 4 different voyages, okay? We'll talk more about Christopher Columbus in the days to come, as he is somewhat of a complicated historical figure. But right now, you just need to know that Columbus is famous for establishing the first prolonged contact between Europe and the New World. Columbus did not discover America. 1, there were already people living here, right? And 2, there was the Vikings actually, and the explorer Leif Erikson were the first European explorers to quote unquote discover North America in the 11th century, almost 400 years prior to Columbus. Columbus also never admitted to having found a new continent. He thought that he had discovered a route to Asia, right? But Columbus's voyage, nonetheless, again establishes this contact with the Americas that the Europeans had not had before. So Columbus launches a new wave of European exploration and settlement. And we see on this column, these are all very famous Spanish explorers, and then the territory that they helped to colonize and settle during this age of exploration. One important result of Christopher Columbus and his voyage was what is known as the Columbian Exchange. And the Columbian Exchange is just a period of biological and cultural exchanges between the Old World, which is Europe, and the New World, which is North America. So we see the exchange of different types of technologies, foods, etc. So if you're looking at this, you can see all of these items here that had previously been unknown to Europeans came from the New World. And in return, the Old World gave the New World all of these um, different types of foods, etc., and animals and livestock, etc., that were new to the New World. This is positive, right? The exchange of ideas, technology, different types of food. But a major negative of the Columbian exchange was the spread of disease. You can see that here. So Europeans brought with them diseases like smallpox, influenza, typhus, malaria, etc., that completely devastated the Native American population because the Native Americans did not have immunity to these diseases. The most devastating of these diseases was smallpox, and you can see someone afflicted with smallpox both here and here. This disease would eventually kill off 90% of the Native American population. Okay, by 1738 alone, half of the Cherokee population in North America had died from smallpox. The first outbreak was in the early 1600s. And William Bradford of the Plymouth Plantation in Massachusetts wrote about it, and here's a quote from him. He wrote that the victims fell down so generally of this disease as they were not, in the end, not able to help one another, not able to make a fire, nor fetch a little water to drink, nor any to bury the dead. So there was so much death that they couldn't even keep up with it to bury their dead, right? This obviously devastated the Native American population. It devastated their economy, their ability to provide food for their people, to sustain their culture and their society. And it really paved the way for Europeans to completely colonize and devastate the Native American population in North America. So right now I'd like for you to stop and answer the summary questions at the bottom of your notes, and then you can flip your card to green when you are ready for a stamp. Thanks.